Okay, thanks for joining us today, everybody. My name's Mark Bowden, and I've got Jennifer Major with me today as well. We thought this would be an interesting collaboration to do because hopefully I can help you to find ways to save some time in your business, and then Jennifer can help you find ways to use that time really productively. So I'm going to go through talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll have 5 minutes of questions. We'll go across to Jennifer, and then we'll open up more broadly to questions. If you've got questions as we're speaking, by all means, please put them in the chat. If we can work them into what we're saying anyway, we will do so, but if not, it'll make it easier to come back later on. So that's broadly the format. I think we've just another rush of people joining, but hopefully everyone is now in. And I trust that everyone can see my screen. Good, right, okay. Let's make a start then. Okay, so stop wasting your time. So I'm going to talk a little bit just before I dive into the content of this about kind of, who is this clown and why is he telling me I'm wasting time in my business. I won't dwell on it for too long. I'm happy to talk to anyone specifically afterwards about any aspect. But my background is I've got nearly 27 years experience in business change, business transformation. That's IT and process change in a range of organizations. I've worked in financial services, I've worked in retail, construction, and I've worked with therapists, coaches and consultants over that period of time in various different roles at different scales. The largest piece of change I've ever delivered was a £250 million program over 4 years. So I've done the big stuff, but I've also helped very small businesses to implement really simple transformations at the other end of the spectrum. So hopefully that gives you a bit of context that I haven't just read all of this off Wikipedia. I probably know a little bit about what I'm talking about. So let's talk about the ways you might be wasting time in your business. You've all gone into business to help customers using whatever service it is that you're an absolute expert at. But there's a number of other things that happen around delivering on that service, which actually take up your time, but they're not really getting you paid. They're just a means to that end. And in some cases, maybe even a necessary evil. And some examples you can see on the screen here: setting up meetings and appointments, people missing appointments, posting onto social media, copying and pasting or rekeying information between the different tools that you use within your business. Those sorts of things, quite time consuming. The necessary evil category probably includes things like your accounts and your taxes and the things you need to do there. And for some businesses, getting reviews, and it's quite an emotive one. And I've talked to a number of different people that have got different experiences here. Some people actually really love, like, they deliver the service and then they love kind of going, hey, would you review me? Most people kind of feel slightly embarrassed about asking. And for some people, it's like, they just don't do it. So, range of kind of different emotions. You will all have within your organizations other things that you do, in your business or your charities, things that you're doing that, add to this list. This is kind of a starter for 10 really, but I think we can all agree these things, if you could do less of them, that would be beneficial. And let's roll on. Okay, so wasting time is actually really, really easy. So some stats to try to kind of quantify this. Missed appointments and setting up meetings, two things that potentially are big time sinks. 14% of all appointments across a sample of over 500 across different types of therapies and medical appointments, 14% were missed. That's a huge number. That's, if you're doing a full working day of just appointments, that's one a day. It's an enormous drain for a small business. 30% that is also obviously something that translates into meetings being missed, and that's obviously potentially a loss for two businesses. In terms of not managing to have that conversation, but actually setting up meetings. So setting up meetings, we do that all the time, and you know how it goes with the email tennis of, you know, hey, can you do this day? No, but what about this day? No, but what about? But what about? And it goes backwards and forwards. A US company called X.AI did a study on this, and they looked at 12,400 meetings during 2014 that was set up through their software. And on average, they discovered it took 8.02 emails to just finalize a date that worked for everyone for meetings. And if you think about that, that is a humongous number of emails going backwards and forwards every day just to set that up. It's a massive waste of time. And the end result, if you'd done it in one email, is no better or worse than if you'd done it in 8. And, you know, it's not an activity that benefits from extra manual input. So it's really easy to waste some time on those sorts of things. But why should you care? I mean, really, you just maybe just sort of suck it up, right? But, you know, this is kind of a point that's worth thinking about. And this is literally the only piece of text in this deck in kind of bright red, and it's like that for a reason. And the reason is this is like, if you take away one message today from what I say to you, it's this, right? Your competitors are already using automation to do what you do faster, at lower cost, and frankly, probably better. And if you don't also get on that bus, you know, you will get left behind. And some of you will have heard some of these, and some of you will know these case studies. I'm not going to go through these in a lot of detail. These slides are very much kind of a distillation of a day's worth of workshop into 20 minutes. So I'm very much scratching the surface here. But, you know, all of these brands, well-known brands in their time, Blockbuster, failed to understand how Netflix would change the industry. Actually had an opportunity early in Netflix's life to partner with and effectively acquire Netflix, but said, no, that will never work, and ultimately was killed by, you know, the streaming industry. Kodak completely failed to see that film was coming to an end in place of digital. Fujifilm invested huge amounts in digital cameras. Kodak actually had digital camera technology first, but they didn't see the commercial benefit in it. They didn't prioritize it, and, you know, not a brand you see very much these days. BlackBerry, similar issue, really not getting their head around the keyboardless nature of smartphones, and they clung onto the keyboard, and that was their USP for too long, while all their competitors had moved away from it. And actually Nokia is a very similar example in the mobile phone sector. And Toys R Us. Toys R Us completely failing to understand how dominant the market position of Amazon was becoming, and refusing to take up opportunities to engage through that channel, where they could have actually created a presence through Amazon, wanted to stay largely store-based with a fairly limited online presence, and also did not end well. So there are probably another 50 well-known brands that you can kind of talk about in these terms, but the key thing is, you know, you've got to stay in front of these trends, or you know, you go the same way as the dinosaurs. So when you come to change some of this stuff, there's kind of 3 important ways to think about this. And whenever you do any of this sort of transformation, and this is important. So people, then process, then the tech, in that order. The time it fails most spectacularly with any sort of transformation process, business change process, is people jump straight to the end and they go, hey, what I need is this piece of software, and they bang it in, and it's not really quite the right tool for the job. They don't really understand why it's not quite the right tool for the job, and they kind of actually just add to the complexity and add to the friction in their organization, and it doesn't save the time that it was expected to for that reason. And, you know, something in the order of 70% of digital transformation programs, and by that I mean introducing new technology into businesses of all sizes, something like 70% of those projects fail to deliver even in the right order of magnitude to the expected savings. And the key reason that happens most often is jump to the tech and try and deploy that. I'm not going to talk through all of these in massive detail today. As I say, this is a kind of a distillation of a workshop. The people bit, I mean, I'm going to kind of say, you know, we've got obviously a range of people on this call today. Most of you are leaders in your businesses. That's the first step. If you know, if I go and talk to a business and the leadership are not on board with the need to make these changes, that's the point to just walk away, because if the leadership are not behind it, the program will fail. The culture of the organization is also important. That's obviously a tone set from leadership, and that's why leadership is a kind of make or break. But the broader culture of the organization often needs a bit of work. Some organizations are more naturally change averse than others. And also then there's the kind of more easily soluble aspect of people, which is the skills gap. So what training is going to be required? But you need to understand all of those things before you kind of get off the starting blocks. The next important bit is process. I'm going to talk quite a bit more about process on the following pages. And process block really breaks down into how clear is the organization around its mission, what it's here to do, how well understood are the current operating processes, and how well understood are the costs, and that includes the kind of costs of wasted time and wasted effort in that organization. So I'll talk a bit more about those three areas, particularly the processes and operating process and cost bits in a moment. But the tech is absolutely like the last stage that you come to. Once you understand the problem you're trying to solve properly, that's the point to start thinking about the tech. And then you need to consider things like, what are the core tools in the organization? Is it a Microsoft shop? Is it G Suite? You know, what are the core tools that they're using? That's critical, because if you don't understand that and you start trying to change everything, you know, it becomes like trying to boil the ocean. Very, very difficult to get a good outcome. You also need to understand within the organization the capability to do the kind of IT admin, and that includes areas like how good's their cybersecurity, as well as their ability to roll out changes, and what's the state of the physical infrastructure. There's no point in putting a completely cloud-based platform into a business that's stuck out in the sticks in a rural area where they've got, you know, very patchy occasional dial-up internet. You know, it's not going to work. So that's kind of the order that you always think about these things. But the mistake I see so often is people kind of coming and saying, I want to know how to implement XYZ piece of tech. Can you help me? And actually it's kind of, well, wait a minute, because you're on step 3 and we haven't started on step 1 yet. So how we think about process, I always try and use a technique called systems thinking. It's also known as cybernetics, but that predates Arnold Schwarzenegger as Terminator. Systems thinking is about thinking about holistically the whole system of an organization, all the things that have to happen, and how to make them work as well as they can between each other, rather than a more traditional change approach where you try and optimize every single component to be as good as it can be. And the danger if you do that is, you know, the analogy is if you wanted to build a car and you went out and bought the best engine from the best manufacturer and the best stereo system and the best wheels and the best tires and the best chassis and et cetera, and then try to actually put that together into the car. I mean, it's probably not even going to make a car, but if it does, it's certainly not going to be the best possible car, because those bits don't fit together, right? So it's about trying to actually understand that the sum of the parts matters more than the individual parts themselves, and understanding how you get feedback loops emerging within an organization's processes, and those can be reinforcing or balancing, and I'll show you an example in a minute of a reinforcing feedback loop. But reinforcing feedback loops are very powerful, but they're hugely dangerous in businesses because they tend to lead to runaway instability, and that's obviously not a good condition to be in. You want predictable, scalable growth. You don't want unpredictable runaway either growth or falling off. And what often you find when you start looking at this is that actually within organizations, the core thing they deliver, whatever that may be, whether it's a therapy business delivering a therapy, or an engineering business building particular types of machinery or whatever it may be is quite well understood because it's understood by the specialists that founded the business. But when you step outside of that and look at the whole system, actually there's lots of bits in there that are very poorly understood because people have kind of picked it up almost by Chinese whispers. So we try and understand all of that and understand the problems that emerge, you know, before we really start trying to think about any solutions. So I'm going to try and take you through really quite quickly. This is a challenge, this part. This would be probably an hour normally. So I'm going to try and do this in about 2 minutes. A really simple systems diagram. So what I've taken here is the core of a really simple business, and I would normally build this up a bit more granular. But if you imagine this is a business where its core operational loop is to have a landing page that captures leads of whatever type, then books people onto a call to qualify them, puts them into a delivery process, whatever that might be. So perhaps it's a therapist and that's where you put the client into the therapy session, or perhaps it's a garage and that's where you put them in and say, right, actually, yes, you do need your car fixing. After that service has been delivered, you put them then through an invoicing process and, you know, talked about feedback loops. You then seek a review, which actually is really great because you can put that back on the landing page. So a lot of people would say, actually, that feels like quite a kind of complete system. And obviously, if you were talking about a retail business, this would look really different in the invoicing section. But a lot of these other steps might potentially be the same. But here's the thing: this looks like a complete system, but actually, if you start thinking a bit deeper, you realize it's nowhere near, because actually to book that discovery call, you need to have some interaction with some sort of calendar to know when people are available. And if you're going to seek reviews, well, you're going to have some mechanism to do it. You need some interaction with the review sites as well. So there's kind of a bit of extra complexity there, but, you know, so far so good. But then, you know, the invoicing side, well, okay, the invoicing side, actually, it's probably kind of nice if you get paid as well as just invoicing. So there's that kind of loop there, and you need to put all of that into your account system. So you kind of start to find more complexity as you dig in there. And by the way, I'm not, in this case, digging anywhere into the deliver box because I'm going to assume that's bespoke to the business. Think about the lead capture. Maybe you want to do some mailings that will allow you to get more people onto the landing page because you're just not getting enough leads. And actually, maybe you've got a lead magnet out there that's getting some different people hitting that landing page. Now you've got more people coming through your landing page and feeding your lead capture and starting to move things forward. And then perhaps you think, actually, when I get paid, I could use some of what I get paid to do some advertising, and that will push some people towards the lead magnet and some other people straight towards the landing page, depending on the program. And you can kind of go on like this for a long time, and almost every other box on here still can be exploded further. But I thought actually this is an interesting place to stop, because actually if you look at that bit I've just introduced there with the advertising, there's an interesting example here of a reinforcing feedback loop and potentially quite a dangerous one. So highlight that in blue. So let's think this through. So you have people hitting your landing page, you qualify them through that lead capture process and the discovery call. You then deliver to them, invoice them, they pay you. You use that for advertising. Brilliant. That's more money to get more people to hit the landing page, which means more leads, which means more calls, which means and so, and you get paid more and more, and it goes round and round. And you think, fantastic. This is a reinforcing feedback loop, because the more that goes into it, the more it builds up, and the kind of the faster it goes round, the more profit you make. And what you should see with this is almost kind of an exponential growth. But the problem there comes what if you don't actually have the capacity to deliver properly the service that you should be delivering with an exponential growth? If your business suddenly was 10x, could you actually deliver on 10 times as much volume? No, you probably couldn't. Which then means that the quality starts to suffer, which is then going to mean you're getting people maybe not paying or maybe seeking refunds. And actually that might start to eat into the available funding for the advertising. And then that means actually you haven't got as much money to spend getting people to the landing page. So suddenly you've got a negative reinforcing feedback loop going on here. And then you're getting less leads, which means you're getting less people booking in the calls, which means you're getting even less to deliver. Now, hopefully at this point, it becomes a balancing feedback loop, and actually your quality can go back up. But if it doesn't, you end up in a sort of a death spiral at this point. And a lot of businesses, when they fail, and businesses like Blockbuster are a great example, where they look good, and they go almost exponentially off a cliff. And these feedback loops are why that happens. So it's really important to understand where they exist in your business and what mechanisms you've got for understanding when they're getting runaway, and controlling them. But the important thing is, once you understand these processes, you can then start to think, actually, okay, where are the problems? Right, so the sort of thing we would then do, we would go through and we'd say, well, actually, what's the problem you got? So with payment, for example, failed payments, we don't want to have to handle cash. I don't like giving out my bank details. I can't make regular payments. Some people just embarrassed about being asked, asking people to pay. Also, lots of people taking payments and maybe not controlling it properly. This is kind of a UK more than a US thing, but we've got Making Tax Digital coming down the track. You've already got it if you're VAT registered for your VAT payments, but it's coming for all tax in 2023. So if you're taking everything and you're not controlling it properly, that sort of problem can arise. Some example problems you might get in the discovery call. We've talked already: time to schedule, missed appointments, conflicts with your personal diary. And then on the review side, get people saying, I don't like asking for them. I might annoy people because I could ask them too many times. How do I know when I get a review? What if I get a bad review? Every time I get a good review and it's a testimonial, I've got to manually update my landing page. These are just some of the examples, and you kind of carry on and you can do this across all these boxes. But this is where, being a few minutes, not a half day, I'm going to skip straight on to the next step, because what we can then do, once you understand it, you can start then to think about automating. And this is the point that so many people jump into without doing the bit I've just described, and it goes wrong because they automate the wrong things in the wrong way. Once you understand your business process, you can start to map your existing applications to it. That tells you actually where you've got gaps, tells you where you've got opportunities, but it also tells you kind of where are the pillars of your business that actually you just don't want to change. You don't want to move your entire Office 365 system to Google G Suite just because some consultant comes in and says, hey, it's a great idea. It's huge upheaval. Unless there's a really solid business case, you don't do it. You don't probably want to move your accounting platform from Xero to QuickBooks or Sage or whatever else, unless you absolutely have to, because it's huge upheaval. But there's loads of other bits in here where you've got nothing. You've got a kind of greenfield site. So then you can start to think about, with the kind of fixed pivot points you've already got with the software that's already in your business, with the problems that you've drawn out through the previous step, where can you most quickly start to alleviate some of those problems by bringing in new software and more automation, and what then becomes your roadmap to use that to deliver the same or better service at a lower cost, and to be predictable, repeatable in terms of volumes and outcomes for your business. And that's really where you're trying to get to. And that's what automation is great for, is that predictability and repeatability. And, let's not forget, if you can't make your business predictable and repeatable and systemize what you do, actually you haven't got business. What you've got is a job. So that's obviously really important. And I think ultimately, that's kind of the essence really of where we try to get to with this. So in terms of how you bring automation into your own business, obviously that is going to vary depending on what you're doing, what you've already got. There are some really easy wins available. If you're a small business, there are literally a large number of free tools available, but plan it properly. Don't just kind of shotgun it out there and grab all the new shiny software, because that is a recipe for disaster, and you won't hit your other business goals because you'll be so distracted by everything else you're doing. So that is my slides done. I'm happy to open up. I've been kind of trying to keep an eye on chat as I've been talking. I haven't seen immediately seen any questions, but if anyone wants to hop in with any questions now, then please do. Otherwise I shall hand over to Jennifer, because then she will be able to tell you how to organize all the time you can free up once you've sorted out the processes in your business.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. That chart, like, as you kept adding more things, there was that little part of me that was just getting more anxiety about, oh my God, what do I need to do in my business that I haven't even thought of, right? Yeah. And I think that's the message too, is that it's not, this is not a one-time destination. This is a journey, and it doesn't matter how long I've been in business for 17 years. And there's, you keep tackling different layers, and as your business shifts, okay, well, there's a whole different set of layers I didn't even know existed. And so I think, you know, being able to really go back and look at that and really almost do an audit.
Absolutely. And, you know, the world keeps changing. So as soon as you get something that's stable, you almost have to kind of go back and kick the tires again, actually, to really stay on top of this stuff. I mean, how fast does everything move? You know, 2020 has certainly taught us that, right?
Right. Right. No, for sure. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll jump in and segue us from there. So we will jump in. So I'm going to turn things on the head for a little bit. So just those of you who have heard me speak before, you've been through this, so you know where we're going. But if you've not, just ride the train a little bit. So one of the things that Mark talked about was, you know, really doing that work and thinking about the people first, and those other pieces before you get to the business processes, before you figure out what your pillars of your business are, and then what you're going to automate, because otherwise you're going to do it backwards. And so one of the things that I teach every single client is this concept of value-based decision making, and it's very confusing initially. So, you know, so I won't kid you on that, but and can you, let me make sure that you can see my screen okay. If you can't, let me know. So value-based decision making is, oh my gosh, I didn't even tell you who I am. Let me start over, sorry. So I'm Jennifer Major, and I'm the CEO and founder of Cultivating You. I have been, like I mentioned, I've been in business for 17 years, doing a lot of organizing for businesses and individuals, both in their homes and their work, and had started the shift to online last year with a bigger shift anticipated this year. I had no idea that my entire in-person business would be shut down in March. And so now I'm 100% online for this work. And so I support business owners in organizing your time, your space, and your energy so that you can do more of what you want, less of what you don't, and make more money in the process. So with all of that said, let me start over here. So my apologies. And so the value-based decision making is all about creating an easier filter for decisions. And so thinking about your time can feel a little nebulous to think about sometimes. So if you think about, you know, we've all heard about or seen the show Hoarders. If you think about like the physical clutter of things, right? That is really all about not making decisions. I might need to use that sometime. I don't know when I'll need to use that. Well, it's broken, but it's, you know, like I can fix it later, probably, right? So it's that lack of decision making that creates that clutter. And then that can grow and grow and grow if decision making is really challenging. What values-based decision making does is that it allows you to really kind of dig in deep and figure out, for the little things, for the big things, whether you're talking about your closet or your calendar or your business. What do I value? What do I not value? What are my priorities? Because sometimes you look at that list of values and some of that just doesn't make sense right now. I'm a brand new business, but I really value the idea of automating and having a team and being able to, you know, Simone mentioned this earlier, staying in my zone of genius, right? My zone of genius may not be doing accounting, but as a new business, well, that may have to be my job, right? And so that's where the priorities come. So you look at those values first. Then you take those and you align those with what your priorities are right now. Some of that's going to be a season in your life. Some of that's going to be a season in your business. Some of that's going to be that we're in a global pandemic. There's lots of different things that will influence the prioritization of those values. And then you fold in the functions, right? And the reason you do it this way is that it's like you're building a new home, and you build that new home based on what you want out of that home. And then you figure out what furniture you've already got that's going to fit into that. As opposed to, this is all the furniture I've got. Let me build the home that fits that furniture exactly. Well, that seems silly, right? And so that's what we do all the time when we're making decisions. We put that function first rather than putting it last. Put that value first, prioritize it, and then fold in the functions, because the functions will figure themselves out because they're functions. They're generally must-have. And so they'll figure themselves out. And what this does is it allows you to create a really, really good filter for how you make decisions about what goes on your calendar, about how you use your time, about what those pillars are in your business, about what makes sense for you to automate. What makes sense in my business may be different than what makes sense in Mark's business, because we're going to have different values on different things, right? I may not want to automate my review process, because for me, I really enjoy having a personal touch with that. That's really valuable for me. But there may be other things that I automate that he wouldn't. And so that's where this value-based decision making can really come into play. And so the other thing we're going to do is I'm going to run through these really quick, and then I'm going to talk about time blocking. And for those of you who've seen me before, I've got the Legos. So we're going to talk about how Legos will help your time blocking. And again, if you've got questions, if you've got ideas, if you've got thoughts, drop them in the chat as we go. And if I can address them as we go, that's great. If not, we'll tackle them on the back end. So don't squirrel. Squirreling is something that we all do, but it will kill your time. And this is a great place when you're looking at what you can automate, when you're looking at where you can get business processes tighter, where you can get your personal processes tighter. Because as business owners, our personal and our business are very intertwined, right? So what do I mean by squirreling? Squirreling is let me give you an example at home. So you're sitting in the living room and you see a magazine that there's one article left to finish. So I'm going to do that. And then I see something in there and it reminds me about something in the bathroom. So I'm not going to finish the article yet. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go see if I have that thing in the bathroom that I need to order. And then while I'm in there, I notice that the sink is dirty, and then I'm going to clean the sink. And then I notice that somebody left a glass in there, and I'm going to go take that to the kitchen. It's 30 minutes later, and you haven't finished the article, right? And now you don't even remember the article. You don't even know why you went to the bathroom to begin with. And you've not really well completed any task. And so it's just, and it happens to all of us, right? It happens when you're in your email, right? There's a form to fill out, right? You get an email, it takes you to a website, you go fill out that form, it invites you to join a Facebook group. You go onto the Facebook group, you join that, and then all of a sudden you see your notifications and there goes 30 minutes. You don't even know what just happened, right? That's squirreling. And we can really help squirreling by blocking our time, by minding our boundaries, by creating systems in our world, and by automating the things that can really distract us. So yes, social media is just, it's a huge squirrel. So reminders and alerts. We're going to talk more about this when I talk about time blocking. And very much like Mark, this is the very distilled version of all of this. So certainly reach out if you've got questions or want to go deeper. Setting reminders and alerts keeps you honest. So I'm a big believer in, I use a notebook to kind of keep track of my tasks and that type of thing, but I'm a big believer in having a digital calendar, and this is why. You can set up alerts for 10 minutes before something starts and in 0 minutes before something starts. So at the time it starts. So that 10-minute reminder is that, oh, I need to start wrapping things up, right? That's your reminder for that. And then at the start time of the next activity, even if these are your activities, these may not be client calls, but if they are, if you've got a client call, but you were working on something for yourself, it allows you to wrap that up well, right? And not to miss the next thing. because there is nothing that will damage your credibility more than being late for a client call. So there are times where, you know, if I'm wrapping up something I'm working on, I get that 10-minute reminder, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and jump on Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and open up that room. So when I hear them come in, I can check the time because I want to be on time. I don't necessarily want to start early because I want to mind my own time. But I really want you to be able to wrap up what you're doing and move to the next thing so that you're not squirreling, right? So that you can stay focused. Notifications. Ooh, this is social media. It can be a bear, right? And the same with your email. Turn your notifications off on this, unless they're the really critical things. The ways that people communicate with you for your business, turn off those notifications, and you'll create time blocks for those so that they will get handled because they're important, but they'll get handled when you've got the focus for them. Because if you're constantly getting those notifications, what are you going to do? You're going to react to them, and that's natural, but it's not good for your business and it's not good for your mindset. Because if you're constantly being distracted by a notification, even if you don't take action on it, it's taking you out of what you're working on and into a different world. So it has by itself squirreled you, right? And we're trying to stay off of that. So yeah, no, for sure. Like WhatsApp, all of those notifications will just tear up your time. So turn them off. I don't care when somebody's going live. I don't care. I mean, like generally speaking, like there's very few people that I need to see that for. So yeah, absolutely, Mark, that multitasking really has a detrimental effect. And here's what multitasking really is. True multitasking is that I'm running a load of laundry right now while I'm in here with you. I have nothing to do with that. I started it and I left it, and it is doing its own thing. That is multitasking. Multitasking is not me being here with you, and while Mark was talking, instead of paying attention, I'm going to go in and reconcile my QuickBooks. That's not multitasking. That's being distracted. And both things would suffer, right? So the laundry is not suffering because I'm in here with you, right? It's doing its own thing. That's true multitasking. So turn off the notifications. You're going to create time blocks that will allow you to manage them and manage them well, but turn them off because they are too freaking distracting. So yes, absolutely, Tila. So managing notifications does have a lot to do with managing those expectations for clients. I saw somebody who, I got one of the automated emails, right? That when you, there's a couple that I've seen that I really like. One says, you know, I check emails between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Central Time. And I will do my best to answer your email. If your email comes in during that time, I will do my best to answer that before the end of my workday. Otherwise, it will be on the next workday. I saw another one the other day. She only answers emails on Mondays. On Mondays. Her clients have Voxer access to her, so they have a way of getting to her and being able to have the attention that they want and that they paid for, but they're not in her email. Can you imagine if you only handled emails once a week? Right now, that's a little anxiety producing, I'm not gonna lie. But if you set that expectation, if you set up your email well, that actually doesn't seem terrible, but it's a new habit, right? And so one of the things that can really help you create good habits, whether it's to stop squirreling, whether it's to jump into focus. I just was talking about this in my membership call earlier today, is creating triggers. So for instance, you're not feeling like doing whatever you need to do for work or for home, right? Whatever it is, create a trigger for yourself. And here's what I mean by triggers. So when you get up in the morning, you get up, you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands, you brush your teeth, you wash your face. There's a series of things that you do. They're not on a list. You're not doing a checkbox like you do when you're a little kid. You just do them, right? They're just part of your morning routine and ritual. And they're triggers. When you go to the bathroom, that's a trigger for, I need to wash my hands. When I'm getting ready to go eat something, I wash my hands first, right? And so there's triggers that we have naturally built in, but there's triggers that we can use to kind of game the system, if you will. And what that looks like is, I don't feel like doing this work, or I'm really nervous about going live or making a video. So I'm going to create a trigger for myself that changes that story. I'm going to create a playlist of songs that I love. They light me up. They get me energized. I have a little dance party, and then I go live, and here we are. Sometimes you need something to ground you more. Sometimes you need something to shift that energy down a little bit. And that's when you reach out to Mitra and you sign up for his program, and you get beautiful meditations, right? And so drink triggers, absolutely, yes, non-alcoholic. But, you know, I've got a special tea that I drink every evening. Riz has one that she drinks in the morning and one in the evening, and one that when she's having meetings, right? And so you can create triggers for lots and lots of things. And what they do is they shift your mindset without you even knowing that they shifted it, right? And you've got to create better boundaries. And those boundaries can look like really neat and tidy buckets, or they can look like, you know, like here's the edge of the country. They can look like big fences, right? It depends on who you're setting boundaries with and how much of a struggle that can be. And so sometimes that, you know, in a land where we're working from home, how do you create time and space so that your kids that are at school doing homeschool, if they're still doing that, that they can have their questions answered without constantly coming in and interrupting you, right? So when you see the scarf hanging on my doorknob, then that means that mom's in a meeting. Please don't knock. Please don't open the door, okay? But I will be out at lunch and we can talk through things then, right? So boundaries can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And it's talking to your clients that, you know what, if you email me, I'll respond within 2 business days. If you call me, I will respond within 1 business day. If you text me, I'm not going to respond at all. Please email me or call me, right? Whatever your rules are that you need to have, what's the point of having them if you're not setting up these boundaries? And those boundaries protect your time. And when you've protected that time, then now you're better able to serve your clients because you feel better, right? You've got a clearer head. You've had time to rest. You've had time to be creative. You've had time to do what you need to do, to eat, to sleep. And now you can go and you can serve them at a higher level. You can serve them better. So one of the big keys with all of this is creating a daily schedule. And I want to be real clear. This does not mean that every day looks the same. Every day does not look the same. Starting and ending your day with I really like to call it a ritual. I feel like that feels different than a routine. But to know that every day starts and ends the same feels really great when the middle parts are very different every day. And so you've got to balance your energy, your time, how you're using your time. And again, this is a place where you can go back and you can look at those business processes. You can look at that time that now you've saved and where can I plug that in? How can I use that time differently? But if you're finding that you're spending a lot of time on social media posting every single day, well, then let's look at what can you automate? Where can you get a scheduling app? And then where can you build in that time block to be able to do that scheduling and doing the work to do that? So then you're only doing it once a week, because the cumulative time may be the same. It may be, okay, well, I'm spending 10 or 15 minutes a day, but I'm only spending, you know, if I do it once a week, I'm spending an hour and a half. So it may be about the same amount of time. But when you get that focus once a week, you're going to get a better quality product, and it's going to feel better because it's not going to be pulling you away, and you're not going to be doing it as filling it in somewhere. one of my ways of encouraging people to look at this, and again, I'm going through this really quickly, is a day dump. And this is where you literally do a brain dump of everything you would love to see in your day. I don't care what it is, dream big. This is your work day, this is your personal day, because they both matter. And what goes onto your daily schedule needs to be what matters the most. It's what fills you up and what makes you money. Those have to go onto your calendar, into your diary first. But if you don't even know what they are, they can't go on there. So you've got to do this big brain dump and see what those things are. And those categories, those are associated with those values we talked about, right? And so that's a check. So as you're looking in your categories, you can see like, okay, well, self-care was a value, but I don't have a whole lot of that on there. And the minutes allotted, if you don't really know, take a guess. Just take a guess. And then check yourself using a timer and a stopwatch to be able to really kind of see what that is. And so it can really be a game changer, because it allows you to really, it's like doing the values. It allows you to kind of really open up your brain and your mind and your heart to what is really important for you and what isn't, frankly, right? You can start putting it on the calendar, okay? And so I'm gonna come back to the Legos in a minute, but this is, using multiple calendars can really, really help as you're doing this, because what that brain dump will end up being is a template, right? It gives you a template for your day, and using multiple calendars allows you to create that template. So in this case, the red is my template, the green is my actual calendar, the yellow is my personal calendar, and I can toggle these off, whether you're using Google or Outlook or Apple or anything, right? They all have sub calendars. And so, oh, John, Taco Tip Tuesday is pretty fire. So we'll talk about that in a second. But it allows you to check yourself, and as you're setting up your scheduling app, because like Mark talked about that, where, you know, having that scheduling app can make a world of difference. You eliminate those 8 emails of trying to schedule a meeting, right? First of all, now you don't have to deal with the emails. And you've set that up really easily by having the scheduling app that is congruent with how you want to spend your time. I've got time for clients and I've got time for networking connections, right? Those are 2 different activities for me, right? And so that's, you know, having that check really, really helps. So yes, so you know exactly what parts of the week are for what types of meetings, and then you take that, translate that into that scheduling app. And so when somebody goes in there to schedule something, you give them a link for a networking meeting. You give them a link for the client call. Those are the times available are going to be 2 different times, right? Because you don't want them to overlap. So that's where that's coming from. This is a different sort of look at a template. People need things different ways. So, and yeah, because then they literally can't book the wrong time. That's absolutely correct, Mark. And so what I want to do is I want to stop sharing, and I want to go back to my wonderful land of the Legos. So, and I can never do this backwards, so I do apologize. So something that's a little crazy, right? Let me get my chat straight. So let me see. This is, with this light, it's hard. Let's see if I can switch the light. This is 15 minutes. This is half an hour. This is an hour, right? Because there's 2 of these in there and 4 in there, right? It's a way to visualize your time. When my oldest, who's now 23, was about 10 or 11, I pulled out a bunch of Legos. She was having a really hard time really getting how time went together. And what would happen is that she would end up stacking her things all together, but then one thing would overflow and it would throw the whole day off, right? So her day would end up looking like this, where everything was all smushed together. Sorry, it's having a hard time focusing on it. And so that doesn't give you the room to wiggle. And a lot of time blocking is built on the traditional sort of old school male patriarchal BS of time, right? Of sitting in the office, the secretary sitting outside of the office, blocking all of the calls, blocking all of the people, and then he can sit in there and concentrate, right? That's not the world any of us live in. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, right? That's not the world any of us live in anymore. And so, but that's what time blocking was built on, where from 9 to 10 a.m., I'm going to work on this. And there was nothing that was going to interrupt it unless there was a family emergency. Well, that's just not our real world now, right? And so you've got to have the time to be able to shift. And so if you're, you know, if you've got a 15-minute meeting with a networking call and it runs long because you're creating a great opportunity for both of you to work together, well, look, you've got the time, because the yellow is open space. And that's the other piece, is I want you to have, Rachel Rogers talks about this all the time, about 40% of your day needs to be unscheduled. That doesn't mean that it's free time to nap, right? That doesn't mean it's unused time. It just means it's unscheduled. And so that gives you the opportunity to be able to shift things, right? So if this got tight, you know what? I can shift it. I can put it in the afternoon, or I can break it up into 2 blocks, right? And so what the Legos does is it gives you a visualization of how you can move your time. Because what I want you to do is, if you've blocked out time, I want you to honor that time. I want you to honor that time for yourself and for what you're working on. Because what happens oftentimes is, oh, well, you know, I meant to do this from 9 to 10, but that other meeting ran long, or I got, you know, I was squirreling in the kitchen, whatever it is, right? And so you take the time block and then just, it's gone, right? And you never really come back to it. And then you feel gross about it, right? You feel shame about it. You just, you know, you feel like you've let yourself down. And that's not good for anybody. You can't make money doing that. You can't build a business doing that. And you dang sure can't serve your clients well doing that. And so being able to know that, you know what, I needed to shift this because something else came up, or frankly, I'm just not feeling it. So you know what, I can take it and I can put it in the afternoon and nobody's hurt. The Lego just moved. So that's the very quick and dirty version of the time blocking. What questions do y'all have? Let me make sure. I was trying to keep up. Yes, you absolutely should block out time for napping. Natalie does it often because, like, so Natalie, hopefully I have your permission about this, but like for Natalie, I know one of the things is that, like, she requires for her training to get 8 hours of sleep. And so if she only gets 6.5 at night, then the other hour and a half still has to happen, right? That's not a world I live in, because I'm not training for anything athletic. I mean, like, a bear would have to chase me to run, and I would die under the weight of the weights that she can lift. And so, but that's what she needs to be able to take care of both her mind and her physical body to do the level of training that she's doing. And so, okay, well, if I know I can only get 6.5 tonight, I'm going to schedule in an hour and a half somewhere else in that day, right? And so no matter what that day looks like, you can schedule that and shift what you need to. And, you know, and there are some days where, you know, like, you're just, you know, like, sort of dying on the vine a little bit at the desk. Take a 15-minute power nap, right? Because you should have enough yellow in your day to be able to do that, right? So what questions do y'all have? That was a great one. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, it's helpful for the visualization. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question too.
Taco Tuesdays, what are they?
Oh, Taco Tuesday. Thank you for the reminder. So, so I really like alliteration, and so Taco Tip Tuesday, every single Tuesday at, oh, y'all are gonna make me translate. So at 9 a.m. Eastern, which is, I don't know, I can't figure that out right now. So 9 a.m. Eastern, I go live on Instagram for just a quick little 5-minute
It's 2
little
p.m.
blurb. Yes, and it's right before, for those of you who attend Tequil's Tuesday, it's literally right at the beginning of that. So I go live on Instagram for about 5 minutes with just a quick organizing tip based on whatever we're talking about that month and that week. And then 3 hours later at noon Eastern, thank you, Simone, for the translations, then I go live in my group, and it's usually 15 to 20 minutes, and we do a deeper dive, and I take questions and really dig into whatever that is. And so like this week we were talking about the multiple calendars, you know, so sometimes it's literally just one tip, sometimes it's a bigger concept. So, but it's really fun. And yes, everybody should eat in these Legos, because like I keep these on my desk as a reminder that I own my time. My time doesn't own me. So, and that I can shift things. So what other questions? That was a great question.
Jennifer, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
It was about the squirreling. I was the one that was going, oh my God, this is me. And I know this about myself. I try and catch myself, and instead of stopping what I'm doing, I try and write things down so I come to it later. So I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. Okay, I'm not going to do that now. And I'll write it down, but I'm not always the best at it. Is there any other tip that you can give around trying to reduce the amount of squirreling that goes on?
A lot of it is a choice to keep yourself focused. When we're creators, it is really, really hard to not have those constant ideas. And I do want to mention, we're getting close to the end of time. I'm happy to stay on. Mark's happy to stay on for a little bit longer if you want to, but if you need to wrap up, this will be recorded so you can catch the end later. But yeah, I mean, some of it is just making the choice to stay super focused in that time. And if you have the ideas, yes, having a spot where you can jot them down is great. I'm a big fan of Evernote because, or I mean, any of the online note apps, really, something digital, because what you can do is you can tag it as an idea, or you can have just a single note that's an idea list and just, you know, keep that list going. Because the problem is that if we put it into, you know, on here, if we put it on a Post-it note, right? How are you ever going to come back to that idea? But if I've got it consolidated someplace digitally where it's tagged well, then it allows me when, okay, I'm getting ready to do some business planning. Let me go back and look at some of those ideas and see what I thought of, right? Or ideas that clients have shared with me, right? So having a repository for those things is really, really helpful. Right? It's like, think about saving your money, right? If you just put your coins here and your coins there, they're still saved inside your house, but they're not saved as well as they are if they're all in one place. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, Tilo, I'm with you on the Kanban.
Sorry, Jennifer. I was just going to say I agree with your suggestion of Evernote as a tool. I think it's brilliant because you can have it on every device you own, and it, you know, because it's all synced up. It's just so easy to organize and just throw things into a dumping pot when you see them, and then use a time block to come back and organize it, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, and the beautiful thing is, and you really want to make sure of this, is that it's something that is available both on your desktop and on your phone, because you're going to have, as a business owner, you're going to have ideas at all sorts of crazy times. You're going to be at a family dinner and thinking of something, out drinking with friends, well, outside of a pandemic, out drinking with friends, and, you know, and think of something, or somebody will say something on, you know, in the taxi, or so you've got to be able to capture those when and where they naturally come.
Whiteboard pens in the shower.
Yes. Well, and I found a notepad that actually you can write on in the shower too. Because my daughter was erasing my whiteboard pen because we shared a bathroom, and so that had to end.
But that's why that's such an effective time. I mean, we all joke about having great ideas in the shower, but that's exactly the point. Is it's a time where you can't be attempting to, you know, multitask. You're doing one thing, but your brain is free to generate ideas, and that's exactly the point. You're not reading your phone. At least
Right.
they invent waterproof phones.
Yes, bath crayons work too. Well, and I mean, and there have been times where I've gone and driven myself to a parking lot and just sat there, not surrounded by much of anything, but I can't do laundry. I can't answer client emails effectively. I can't, to be able to get, kind of that shower kind of focus, for sure.
Definitely.
Well, wonderful. If we don't have any other questions, we can wrap up then.
Oh, Lincoln?
Jennifer, brilliant talk. Well done, Mark. Loved it.
Thank you.
A really straightforward question. You have really worked on this to get to where you are. How long did it take you to get to this point? Because I can't believe that you identified the problem and then 7 days later you had it sorted. In reality, because I was discussing this, because knowing the exchange we had yesterday, knowing this was coming and I didn't want to miss it, I've been discussing this. Time management is a factor for all of us. How did you get to be so beautifully, brutally ruthless with your time management, the way that you do it, which is so bloody effective? Because everybody's shaking their heads with admiration with the way that you just put that there.
I mean, it's been years. I mean, I grew up, in the world of Franklin Covey planners where you had your A, B, and C, and then you move things over. And, I mean, I've been doing this for, decades.
Right.
And let me not kid you. It's not like my calendar is beautiful and seamless and not jacked up sometimes. I mean, there are days, like yesterday, I got to about 2 p.m. and I was like, I don't know where my lunch break went. It should have been on there, but I don't know what happened to it. And so it's a constant journey. I mean, there's layers, right? So start with one thing. And then when that starts feeling really good, then start with the next thing. And just start layering things in and layering things out, right? Taking out more of what doesn't suit you, putting in more of what does. And then you've got to come back and do a reevaluation every now and again, right? And it depends on what season you're in, right? I mean, you're in a very different season now because you've really changed your business model to being primarily online. And so that's going to look really different. And there's going to be some chaos and craziness that's part of that 6 months from now won't be part of that. Yeah. Right, and wasn't part of it a year ago. And so that's something to keep in mind too, is that this is not a one-time destination. It's a lot of layers. I mean, just like looking at the business processes, you can't just do that once. You've got to do that over and over and over again, whether it's every 6 months, at least once a year, don't you think, Mark, of doing that audit?
Definitely. And you can do the two together, because actually your business processes are going to inform you where you should be blocking your time. And that's kind of the beauty of this, is that once you understand how your business runs, you can make intelligent decisions about how to implement your time blocking, and then that frees up more time that you can spend to work on your business, not in your business.
Right.
Which in turn, it becomes, I talked about reinforcing feedback loops. It's kind of a classic example. The more you can block your time, the more efficiently you can sort out your processes and block more time.
Right, absolutely.
Mark, I was going to say, I have a question for Mark. By the way, I love how you guys have coordinated your clothes as well.
We did.
Yeah. Very cute.
I'm always in green. Mark just decided to match me.
Yeah, Mark likes to copy. That sounds like him. So, and I love this, by the way. So Mark, for your automation, by the way, if anybody hasn't had a free checkup with Mark with that thing that he posted, that thing, it's really good, by the way. Especially the calendar thing is amazing. The amount of time I just wasted on calendars. What I was going to ask Mark is, for an average business, probably like most of the people here, how many sessions would they need with you to automate some of the stuff?
If they're a small business, actually, we usually can do quite a lot with one. So I actually now, I've changed how I structure it, because I used to say to people, oh, well, we'll get on a call and we'll see how it goes. I've actually realized that what that means is you almost end up penalizing people that need the most help. So I try and do it on an outcome basis now and say, well, actually, we'll just get you set up, and it's a fixed amount of time, but usually fixed price rather, regardless of amount of time. But usually for most people, it's to get something like the calendar working. I mean, you obviously got to look at each piece together. To get something like a calendar working, you're looking at maybe an hour and a half with maybe, you know, half an hour each side of that of sorting things out, and maybe one follow-up session, and you're kind of up and running in a way. It depends on what we need to link it up with. But for a larger business, you know, I would do a full day workshop doing the whole kind of business process, and then really starting to dig into it. So it needs to be proportional to the size of the business. There's no point in turning up to a small business with one person and saying, hey, you know, we're going to need 500 man days worth of work to understand your processes. It's just ridiculous. But it's kind of one of these things where the more people you've got in the business, almost sort of the kind of get an exponential growth in the number of interactions between those people, right? So, yeah. You know, 10 people in a business is 100 times more complicated than one person.
Yeah.
And that's where the mess kind of gets created. When you're running a business on your own, there's some simple stuff you can do. Mm-hmm. Great to understand the processes, and that's a, you know, couple of hours, understand all your processes at high level, and that's probably enough when it's just you. When it's two or three of you, it's probably still fine. When it's 10 people, actually you need the whole day. When it's 100 people, that's weeks of work, you know, and that's the nature of it. But yeah, for a small business, it's very quick. And loads of these tools for small businesses as well, loads of these tools are available in free versions. So it doesn't have to be really expensive. I think people think automation equals expensive, and it doesn't, but do it right, because otherwise what you do is you bake in an automated wrong process that allows you to get it wrong really quickly.
No, thank you, Mark. That's really helpful. And Jennifer, I feel like I'm one of the squirrels, because I don't know, I think I see my mum do it. As you see it growing up, and we try and be superwomen, try and do everything at the same time. Like, actually, we're like octopuses. That's what we're like. We're like octopuses.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, we absolutely learn from our family of origin.
And we can't actually, I've realized multitask. No, they say women can multitask. It actually isn't true, because we're not multitasking anything. It's actually diluting. Whatever we're doing, we're diluting it, because we're not giving it 100% attention.
Right. What I think that always, I mean, from the research that I've done on the psychology side of things, looking at the difference between men and women, is that women tend to sort of think of the layers differently. So, okay, well, I'm going to be on this call for a bit, so I can go and I can take 2 minutes to throw laundry, and that can be running while I'm on this call. And then when I take my next break, I can go and I can switch it to the dryer, and then it can be going in there. So, you know, we think through those layers in different buckets, whereas men tend to compartmentalize their buckets. So they may think of those layers, but they're going to look at, okay, well, is there something else I can have sort of running in the background for work? They're not necessarily going to think in the outside of those work buckets or that kind of thing. One is not right or wrong. They tend to be different. And again, that's generalized information based on research, right? But also, like, addressing your question with Mark, is doing that calendar setup. If you haven't done the work to figure out what kinds of blocks you need, when those blocks will be, is going to take much longer and be much harder to do. So if you do that work in advance and you walk in and you're dealing with the tech piece and getting that set up, and getting all those bits and bobbles set up to where that scheduling system works really well for you, and you don't have to try to figure out, oh, well, I don't know when I want these different appointments to be. And doing that work in advance can really make a huge difference in how fast that can flow.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's really helpful.
I was just going to come in slightly, actually. I think it's interesting what you were saying there, Jennifer, about the difference between men and women. And I think part of that is that women have had more experience over the recent history than men of kind of working from home, working in the home. Mm-hmm. And I think I found it quite interesting talking to some people that I know that are saying actually with what's happened this year, where everyone's been forced to be at home, there's a bit more awareness of maybe some of those non-business things. So I think, you know, some of it's kind of situational and to do with our upbringing and our kind of societal expectations, right? Rather than necessarily hardwiring. But I agree that you do see that difference, that men traditionally tend to think much more in the, right, what can I multitask in work, and then out of work is a different set of things.
Right. I mean, because, you know, like if the man is going out to hunt, like you really don't want him being distracted by taking the little kid along with him, right? And those were, I mean, like if you go way back, that's where some of that comes from. But then the woman is there and she's handling the children, and then the fire is going to cook the meal, and she's, you know, hanging up the cloths, and right. So she's already sort of juggling all of those things. If you're going out to hunt something that could kill you, you really need to have that focus. And so, I mean, it really is multi-generationally deep where that comes from. And then it was just continued to be fed. And so, yeah, I mean, gender roles now in our generation and younger generations are shifting what those look like and shifting what we think about. And I absolutely agree that in the pandemic, when more people are working from home, some people really shouldn't be working from home, right? And so, because of the squirreling, right? They think, okay, well, I'm going to multitask. I'm going to go drop something in the laundry and get that started. And then they think I'm hungry, and so throw something on the stove, and right. So, but some of that is skills, and some of that is just natural abilities. So, great question.
I've got a quick question. Is there any apps or software or subscriptions that you would recommend for time blocking or automation?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Yes.
Yes, there's lots. And my answer is probably the same as Mark's, that there are a lot and it depends. So, because it really depends. I know, Riz, you want me to make a Lego timeline, I know. But it really all depends on what those needs are. You know, I mean, if you look at scheduling apps, you know, Calendly versus Acuity, do they both do pretty much the same thing at the end of the day? Yes. Different ones are going to offer you different things. They're going to feel different. One of them is going to speak to you more than the other. Or you may have just seen one first, right? But I mean, if I were to say, like, where is one piece of automation you can do today to get time back, it would be a scheduling app. If you're a business owner, eliminate those 8 emails today.
Yeah. There's just no upside in doing that, right? So yeah, do it. But I think that, and I think the other thing is, you know, your kind of your diary standardization, that diary time blocking. You can do that with whatever diary, you know, if you're on Outlook, or if you're on Google Calendar, or if you're on iCal, any of those, you can have a second calendar you can put alongside, and you can just block in the time as you want it. Set it as, you know, free, not busy, so it doesn't just completely make you unavailable for everything, unless you want loads of free time. But you can just do that with whatever tools you've got today. That is an absolute game changer, doing that. It makes an amazing difference, because you eliminate that kind of, I come off a call and then go, now what's the most urgent thing I should be doing? Because actually you come off a call and you go, right, my diary says I haven't got another call immediately now, so the thing I'm supposed to be doing now is whatever it is, sales calls, client work, recording a Facebook Live, whatever it is. You don't need to think about it. You just go, right, that's what's on the list. That's what I need to do now. It just reduces the cognitive load of the whole thing, which is half the problem.
Absolutely. Well, and having those blocks, you know, if you think about like doing networking one-on-one calls or bigger networking groups, that's a very different energy that you're bringing than when you're working with clients. And so to have those batched together means that you're going from one to the next, and you know, when you're working with clients, you're in that mode, right? It reduces the squirrels again, right? Because you're not going from a networking call to a client call to creative time to a call with your accountant, and right? I mean, you can't do that. So, bye, Lincoln. So, no, those are great questions. And Mark and I will include our discovery call link in the email that we'll send out with the replay. So that way you can have an opportunity to reach out, chat with us about what might make the most sense for you if you've got questions. And we'll include our social stuff as well. So you can see Taco Tip Tuesday as you wish. So.
Excellent.
Can I just do like a warning? Like the Taco Tip Tuesday is dangerous. It makes you want to eat tacos and nachos. So you can go and listen to the tips without eating nachos. But it's very difficult.
That is true. She eats nachos every week now. So awesome. Well, I guess if there's nothing else, then we will wrap up. Thank you so much for your time today. This was so much fun, Mark. We should do this again.
We should. How about January?
Absolutely. I love it. I love it because everybody's going to be ready to dig into their time and get things straight in January. So. Yep.
Done. There we go. If I was more forward thinking, I'd even be able to tell you the date that we'd agreed, but we will be doing it again in January. We moved it, didn't we? It was going to be the 8th, but we moved it.
January 7th.
7th of January. There you go. So if you fancy a replay of this, 7th of January. If you're watching this on replay and you wish you were here, 7th of January. It'll be on Eventbrite.
Yeah.
Cool.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's been really
awesome. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
You make a great team, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shada.
We coordinated even.
I know.
Without purpose.
No, that's it. Definitely. Brilliant. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.